name is William Orsua, and this is Canon Digital Masterclass. I'm actually in the scene right now and I want to bring you along with me. This is a free online workshop with Canon ambassadors and professional shooters. This is a pre-recorded workshop and I'll be able to answer your questions in the comment section below. Hello guys, my name is William Orsua and welcome to Canon Digital Masterclass. So guys, first and foremost, I would like to tell you more about myself. I am a passionate travel and landscape photographer. I also do wedding and portraits. I live in Vancouver, but of course, syempre, I'm a proud Filipino. I've been shooting for probably about 10 years now, and I've evolved into shooting in different locations. I've traveled quite a bit. Just recently, Canon Canada has featured me on their website. Also, last year, I went back home to the Philippines and I was featured in Manila Times. Tells you a story about my journey as well. And just a few years ago, the Philippine-Canadian Inquirer featured me as one of their Filipino-Canadian. Tells you a lot more about my journey into photography and the things that I love. Also, last year, I went back home in Manila. I actually had my very first exhibit at Emilio Aguinaldo College. I'm gonna take you guys with me, sasama ko kayo. I'm gonna show you my workflow, how I do my landscape photography. So hopefully you guys will learn a little bit from it. So I would like to show you guys my Canon gears. I've been shooting with Canon for about 9 years now. I started with 5D Mark II to 5D Mark III to the 1DX system, and now I'm using the mirrorless system. Right here with me is the Canon R6, the newly released Canon R6. It's quite an amazing camera. It's packed with a lot of features. And my favorite lens actually is the 15 to 35 RF lens. I use it a lot for my landscape photo shoots. And on my bag here, I have with me my 85 1.2 RF DS. I use it a lot for my creatives, for my portraits. It's an amazing lens. And I have with me this tiny lens, but really powerful, the 35 1.8 RF lens. It's a macro lens at the same time. It's a really good lens to start with, guys. And I kept with me still my 100 to 400 millimeter 2.8 Mark II. I use it a lot for my intimate shot, and the good thing with the Canon mirrorless system, you can purchase an adapter and all the EF lenses still works perfectly with the mirrorless system. Canon Canada has lent me the newly released 1DX Mark III. This is a power horse, guys. It's an amazing camera. It's a pre-production unit. I'm testing it. It's amazing. Yeah, you guys should check it out. Oh, by the way, guys, this video right now is being shot with my Canon ESR along with a 24 to 70 lens. That's my second body actually. On my bag all the time I have my R6 and my ESR. So before we start, guys, I would like to show you a slideshow video collection of photographs I've taken all over the world in the past years. I hope it inspires you. Let's check it out. So guys, what is landscape photography? What is travel photography? And why do I do this hobby? Why do I love landscape photography? Landscape photography is basically capturing nature and its beauty, while travel photography is just documenting your journey, the landscapes around, and even people and its culture. I love landscape photography because it takes me away from my real world. It keeps me sane. Here in North America, our lifestyle is very busy. I'm actually a healthcare worker at the same time. I still work full-time. I'm a family man. I'm married with 3 kids, so my life is just really busy. But when I do my landscape photography, when I travel, it just takes me away from a different world. So guys, first thing you need to know when you want to do travel and landscape photography is, saan mo ba gusto pumunta? Would you like to just travel locally? Punta ka ng Batanes, let's say Palawan, Boracay. The first thing you need to decide on is, would you be traveling locally or you want to go overseas? Actually, there's a lot of beautiful landscapes and countries to go to. For example, Iceland, Norway, Patagonia, and of course, where I live is Canada. So that's the first thing you need to realize. Saan mo ba gusto pumunta? One of the most important thing you also have to think about is the season in the country that you wanted to go to. Gusto mo ba pumunta during winter? It's so cold right now. We are at like negative 35. It's freaking cold. Ooh. Summer, fall, or spring. Every season has its beauty, so you just have to decide on which month, which time of the year you would like to travel. For me personally, I love shooting a winter. I love ice formations, and yeah, that's one of my favorite. So the next thing you need to consider when you're traveling is, when you're about to embark on a travel and landscape photography, is you have to do a lot of research, guys. Actually, 50% of the success of your journey or your tour is going to depend on how much you prepared yourself. Research about the weather. You need to research about the locations and so on and so forth. First and foremost, you have to invest on a GPS maybe. Maybe you're traveling by land. GPS helps you take you from one place to the other. Now the climate, you need to research on that. Let's say for example, you're going to Canada, you're going to winter. You have to invest on clothing that can bear the extreme cold. In Canada, we can go up to negative 40. So you have to have layers of clothing. You have to have your base layer, you have to have your mid layer, and you have your core jacket. So not just any kind of jackets that can bear the extreme cold, and so on and so forth. In winter, you gotta bring those heat packs and all that. And of course, if you're shooting in tropical summer, you gotta wear something that's comfortable. You have to bring water. So aside from that, you have to research on the location. For example, at this place, the great thing about these days is we have Pinterest, we have Instagram. If you hashtag, for example, Vancouver, you can see the most beautiful landscapes in here, and it gives you a sort of a guide on the places you wanted to go to. One of the most important things you need to know about landscape photography is researching about the weather. For example, you're coming here in 2 weeks. We have apps like Weather Channel and so on and so forth. The good thing is, just on your cell phone, you can do your research. Just download the apps and you can search what's the weather gonna be in Vancouver next week. Is it gonna be cloudy? It's gonna be sunny. For example, right now, here in the location where we are, it's a little bit diffuse because of the forest fires that we're having. But you take whatever you get on the scene, you make it work for you. As they say, there's no bad light, only bad photographers, right? So it's a lot of research, and just a lot of planning. guys, now that you've done your research, the next thing you need to consider is how are you going to travel? How are you going to do your destination shoot or your landscape photo shoots? There are three main ways to do your travel and landscape photography tour. First thing, and one of the most important one, and what actually I advocate and would suggest to you guys, is traveling by joining a photography tour company. Basically, when you join a photography tour, everything is set to you guys. You just have to pay a certain fee. You pay for your airfare, of course. You get into the place and the tour company will take care of everything. They will provide you with a tour guide. I actually work as a part-time tour guide for Wide Horizon. You just jump in there, you meet the guys, you meet the group, and we'll give you an orientation of the whole tour, the places where you're gonna go. They will provide transportation, accommodation, and your safety, which is really important. So the great thing about that, as I said, is you have nothing to worry. You just have to get to the place. The next way to do your travel and landscape photography tour is by researching for a local photography guide. For example, in Canada, I can do private photo tours. So you can research, for example, in Iceland for a photography guide. The great thing about that is it's more private. It's one-on-one. You get a private tour guide. You get into the location. The tour guide will meet you and guide you along. And the next and last way to do your photography tour is by what we call sariling kayod. Sariling kayod means you do it by your own. You do everything by your own. So that means you have to do more research and preparation. You have to rent a car. You have to find your places and everything that you need on your travel and landscape tour. The success of your tour will depend on how you research and plan for it. So guys, what I'm gonna discuss now is how I actually start off with my landscape shoot. The things that you need to know, it's what we call your workflow, your actual workflow. This is really important in making sure you get your epic shot. So the first thing you need to know, guys, is your location. For example, in this exact location, I have my leading line here. So you need to research, as I said, you need to find which location you're going to do your sunrise, your sunset. In landscape photography, sunrise and sunset are what we call our magic light. It's our best friend. It's when we get the most beautiful light. So you need to research the location. How far is it from your accommodation? If you're shooting from one place to the other, you need to know how to get there. So you need to research on that. The next thing you need to know is your composition. How are you gonna shoot this place? So one thing I'll share to you guys is one really important technique that I always practice on my photo shoots is how to properly place your tripod. So this is really imperative in composing. Usually when I get to a location like this, I take off my camera from my tripod and I just look at the scene. I find my perfect composition. For example, I want to shoot it this way with the leading line. Then my tripod will adapt to how I wanted to shoot it, not the other way. A lot of us photographers, we get into the scene, we put our tripod and we put our camera in there and we just shoot wherever the tripod is. So for me, you gotta find your perfect composition and your tripod should adapt to you, either a high angle or a low angle shot. So composition, that's really important, guys, because that is something you cannot change through post-processing. So the next thing you need to learn is about your design. Are you gonna shoot using a telelens? Are you gonna be shooting with a wide angle lens? For example, this exact scene, I need to decide, am I gonna shoot this with a wide angle or I'm gonna shoot it tight with 100 to 400, 70 to 300, whichever long lens you have. So that's really imperative. You need to be sure on what exactly are you going to use. One really important thing to remember too is before you get to the scene, make sure you come at least 30 minutes to an hour before the actual golden hour that you're going to shoot. This is really important because in that way you don't rush. The key to success of an epic shot is having enough time to shoot it or being prepared. Let's say I'm shooting this on sunset. My foreground would be those flowers. So I've done my research about that already. So I know where to shoot. I know my angles. So when the perfect lighting comes and I'm ready to shoot, I'm right there with the perfect angle. So one thing you need to guys know, the last thing I have on my workflow is get to know your gear. You're ready to shoot, but how are you gonna shoot this? You need to brush up your skills, guys. For example, ito, am I gonna shoot it on 2.8? Am I gonna shoot it at f16? My exposures and all that. So you need to make sure you're ready for that. You need to know how to use your camera, the features that your camera has. So before you even embark yourself on a travel, play with your camera, get to know your camera. So when you get to the scene, you know what exactly to do. One of the things I use a lot on my landscape photography, I use a 100mm filter system. You screw this into your lens, and the great thing about it comes with CPL. It enhances your shadows, the clouds, the colors. And I use an ND grad. Usually I have a 6-stop, 10-stop, up to 15 stops. I use it a lot doing long exposure. And what I use the most is my ND grad. It balances my foreground and to my sky, my horizon. So I usually screw it in here, just like that, guys. So now I'm ready to do my shoot. So we're all set. So things you have to remember, don't forget, be there ahead of time, research about your location, get to know the location. What are you gonna use? Are you gonna use a wide angle lens? Are you gonna use a tele lens? And the next thing is finding your composition. Where exactly are you going to shoot when sunset comes or whenever you're ready to shoot? The next thing is your skill. Are you gonna shoot with f16? When I do my landscape, I usually shoot between f11 to f16. I shoot a lot of wide or long exposure, so I play around between 1 second up to even 7 minutes actually on my landscape shoots. Yeah, those are things you need to know. So guys, what are the benefits of using the ESR? So one great thing I love about the new mirrorless system is for portability. As you can see, when you do travel photography or landscape, you love to travel, the weight is a big factor. The great thing about the mirrorless is just it's so light, it's easy to bring, it packs in a bag, you can bring your 2 cameras easily on your bag. Unlike before, you bring your 5D Mark IV or your 1DX, it hardly fits in your bag. And one of the things I've experienced during my travels is in the airports, you get less questions, you don't get seized with the mirrorless system because they're so small. When you're bringing really huge cameras, they think you're doing a commercial shoot, you end up being questioned. What I love about the mirrorless system of Canon, especially the R6 right now and the R5, is the image quality, guys. The image quality of the Canon mirrorless system is top-notch, it's superb. One thing I love about the Canon mirrorless system is its reliability. I can shoot in extreme cold. I've shot at -40. I think I went to even up to -45. -45 degrees Celsius, guys. That is extremely cold. The Canon ESR was able to handle that cold. I've shot also in hot places and tropical hot places like in our country, in the Philippines. It's quite hot, it's humid. And one of the most extreme places I've shot is in the deserts of Utah. It was probably around +40. It was extremely hot, and guys, my Canon mirrorless system didn't give in. It stand the heat and the cold, so that's one really important thing. Yeah, those are the factors that I love about the Canon mirrorless system. It won't let you down wherever you're shooting. It won't let you down. So guys, what I'm going to discuss now is visual design. This is really important in composing your perfect image. One of the main rules in composing and ways to compose is what we call rule of thirds. Rule of thirds, you probably heard it a lot, it's one of the most effective way in composing. So in rule of thirds, basically divide the image into equal thirds, horizontal and vertically, and we place our subject in the intersecting lines. This is one of the most powerful way to compose. I suggest you practice rule of thirds. The next thing to do your composition is what we call reflections. We call reflections as mirror photography. It's basically an artistic echoing of your image. You will see a lot of reflections on places like this. Lakes, oceans, ice fields, and paddles. Sometimes to find those perfect reflections, you need to go down low. You need to check and search for your perfect reflections. You go down up and check for that perfect reflections. It's a really good way to compose, guys. Very artistic. Another way to compose is what we call a foreground effect. A foreground is the part of your image that is closest to you. It balances your image. It creates a perfect aesthetic design. It's a very effective way to compose. A perfect example of foreground effect is these leaves here. It balances your image from foreground, the midground on the boats, and the mountains at the back. When you go on location, I suggest you look for foregrounds. It can be leaves, it can be rocks, it can be a piece of wood. Anything that can make a beautiful foreground. So guys, another good way to compose your image is what we call leading lines. Your viewer's attention is drawn by the leading line. This is a really good example of a leading line. Leading lines can be vertical, it can be horizontal, it can intersect. It makes your image really artistic. It's one of the easiest way to compose. I suggest when you go on the scene, you observe and look for leading lines. It's beautiful, guys. For example, this particular location, my eye would be led by these pathways going to these boats and up to the mountains. Another way to compose, it's what I quite often use to, is what we call patterns. Patterns can be shapes, it can be objects, it can be colors. So when you're in the scene, observe for pattern. It creates a beautiful design on your image. Sometimes your image can turn into almost like an abstract by using patterns. It's really an effective way to compose. I use it a lot. A lot of great landscape photographers use it. Another way to compose is what we call a human element. Human element is very popular at the moment. Some people even brings model with them on a shoot just to be their human element. Human element is basically introducing a person on your image. It creates drama, it creates story, it creates dynamism. And right now, guys, a lot of photographers use it. It's getting popular, and maybe you can practice using human element. So guys, those are the main rules of composition that I use. I suggest you practice them. Rule of thirds, leading lines, reflections, patterns, and human element. These rules of composition can never go wrong. In every place, wherever you go, you observe for that. I guarantee you, you'll find them in any location that you'll go. So guys, hope that helps. And the main secret in being successful in photography is just practice. You gotta practice a lot, you gotta shoot a lot, and observe, research, and all those things that I've mentioned. So thank you very much, everyone. That's it for this workshop. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sparing your time to listen, and hopefully you guys have learned a lot from this workshop, and hopefully you can bring along these things you've learned today in your next journey to do your travel and landscape photography. I would like to especially thank Canon Philippines for having me as a part of this digital masterclass. It's truly an honor to be able to share the things I've learned throughout the years in photography. I would like to especially thank also my friends who helped me put together this video. You guys know who you are. Maraming salamat po. And I would like to say hello to my wife and say thank you for always believing in me and letting me go on these travels and to do what I love, do this photography. I would like to say hello to Jacob, Mateo, and Sophia, my kids. So once again, thank you very much. Stay safe and be kind, everyone. Cheers.